We are live. We are live. Okay. Ah, much better. So, hello there to Anna
Hello.
Lazowski in chilly Winnipeg, Canada.
It's not too bad. It's only, I think, minus 14 Celsius here today. So it's
Only
warmed up.
minus 14 Celsius.
Yeah, it was minus
Just
32 a few days ago.
the thought of that degree of cold, which is the same as a freezer, reminds me of my days in Ottawa, and those weren't good days. Anna, it's great to have you on our new podcast for New Books Network, where we are going to be talking about your craft as a children's author, your life, and especially about your new book, T Rexes Can't Tie Their Shoes. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I read it; it's incredible. So
Oh, thank you.
a few words about how the book happened, and be sure to mention the illustrator, your agent, the publisher, where you can get it, and then we're going to talk all about you.
Okay. So my road to publishing was not typical. So I like to tell this story, but remind people that it's not typical because I know it can be frustrating for people that work a really long time to try to get published. So I'm a journalist and I have a background in fine arts and journalism. So I've been working as a journalist for 20 years. So I write and edit every day. That's what I do at work. So I kind of count all of that as like subbing and querying and editing experience. So when I decided to try writing a children's book, I did it in the middle of winter in January a couple of years ago, because as you said, it's freezing cold here. There's not a lot to do, but it's nice to have creative outlets. So I decided, okay, I'm going to try and see. I knew nothing about publishing. I knew nothing about querying or agent. Didn't know anything. So like, I'm just going to do this for fun because it'll be fun. I like, I like children's books.
One
So
second.
I started working on,
Well, Anna,
yes,
it is fun if you're a masochist.
but I didn't know that yet. I was just doing it for me. I didn't think anyone would ever see this or that it would necessarily ever exist as a book. So I wrote it and I thought it was cute and fun. And then I was like, well, how does publishing even work? I don't really know. So then, because my background is in research and journalism, I dove in and it became like I was fascinated. And I was just like pulling back all these layers, learning about agents, learning about querying, learning about, query tracker and pitch contests and all this stuff. And I was like, it became like a part-time job for me. I kind of became obsessed by it. So I was like, I want to figure out how this works and see like how far can I go? Again, no expectations, because I also didn't know how few people get books published, how few people get agented. Like I had no idea. So I just kind of blindly barreled through all these things
Do,
and sort of learned as I went.
do you know the odds?
Oh, like, isn't it like 3% or something?
No, it's more like 1 in 3,000.
Ah, well, that's pretty good then. I guess I'm thinking of, I've seen some pretty terrifying looking agent acceptance odds, but
Agents get thousands of submissions a
yeah,
year, and sometimes they take a couple of new people
yeah,
on and new writers. So you are
yeah,
one in 1,000, let's say.
yeah.
How does that feel?
It feels pretty good. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
continue.
yeah. So, I mean, I was kind of, so as I said, I was learning as I went, trying things. And then I was like, oh, there are mentorships. I'll apply for some of those. Didn't get them. Oh, I'll do some of these pitch contests. nothing. So I just kind of kept bumbling on. I kept writing other things, and I, joined a couple of things and found a couple of critique partners and kind of bumbled through that. And then in June of 2019, so this started in January of 2019. I wrote the first draft of the book in January. June of 2019, by that time I'd written a whole bunch more. I'd done some querying. I had some fulls out with some agents at that point. And I did the PB pitch contest in June of 2019. And I got a like from Frances Gilbert at Doubleday. So I was like, wow, okay. I had done pitch contests before with nothing, with that exact pitch. So I sent it to her, and about an hour later, she wrote back that she wanted to buy it. Yeah. So it was that fast. And at that point, like I said, I had full requests out with about 5 different agents, maybe different books, because I had some nonfiction. I had this. Nope, I wasn't querying this anymore at that point. So no one had actually seen this book except for me and her, because I had written it before I had critique partners or knew about critique partners. So at that point, I started going back to agents to see if any of them were interested in representing me. And I ended up signing with Mo at Bookends.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So yes, that's really wonderful. Did you at any stage think perhaps you would do a deal with Doubleday without an agent?
I thought about that, but not really, because I had spent so much time looking for an agent. And as much as I like diving in and learning a lot about things, contracts are not something that I am interested in my brain. And even when I saw the first contract, like I just looked at it and went, this is why for me, it's better to have an agent, because it's not something that interests me. So yeah, I definitely wanted to have an agent. I wanted to have an agent that liked my writing and could see like a future and a career path for me, and not kind of just wanted to represent this one book that had already sold on its own. So yeah, but I did want to have an agent, because I think it's nice to have someone that can help you navigate publishing, because there are a lot of weird unwritten rules in publishing too that you kind of learn about the farther you go. And, there's so much about relationships and personalities, and it's nice to have someone to kind of bounce things off of.
So you found glory from PB Pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a shout out to Deborah.
Yeah.
Who is who's one of the Deborah Shumacher, who's one of the people behind PB Pitch, and the other folks there. Their names evade me right now. She's been on the show.
PJ McElvain. Yeah.
That's right, and that's incredible. You are like a poster woman for PB
I always say, like, people are always like, oh, I don't know, I've done pitch contests and never gotten any traction. And I can say this, I use this exact same pitch in PitMad, in earlier versions of PB Pitch. It's all talent and luck and timing. But the luck and timing are, I think, as important as the talent, because especially with those, people are scrolling and it's just the right eye at the right moment. And you never know.
I would like to see that pitch.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please. That's incredible. That's an incredible story, and this is and like you said, it's in rhyme, and you explain what it is.
Yeah, part of it's in rhyme. Do
you want to read some of it?
Sure. Yeah, the beginning there. So when I was talking to Frances about the book, when I initially sent it to her, it was largely an alphabet book, so it didn't have the rhyming opening text. So we decided that would be a nice addition to it to kind of set it up. And at one point, before I knew anything about books and didn't know like how many pages you could have and all that, at one point I thought it'd be really fun if you could do this book, do all the letters to Z with all the things animals can't do, and then go backwards and do all the things animals can do. But we didn't do that because that would be, insanely long. So instead we did a double spread of nonfiction facts about what the animals can do at the end. So there's a little element of that. So it kind of has rhyming, then it just has the ABC stuff, and there's a nonfiction element. So it's a little bit of everything. How much would you like me to read?
Well, I don't remember the beginning. It's something like an aardvark doesn't know where to park. I would suggest a sequel where you run it backwards with the things
that would be fun.
The animals can do. It's wonderful. Start at the beginning.
I will start at the beginning.
Until you reach the letter L or something.
Okay. You won't be able to see the pictures very well though, but
Yeah, but this goes to some people will, and some people
Okay.
are listening to us in podcast. And
Okay. So here we go. The writers.
but Anna, the
Yes.
illustrator.
The illustrator is the amazing Steph Liberis, who is in San Francisco now. She's worked in animation, she's worked in television, she illustrated the Grumpy Cat books, which a lot of people are familiar with. She's incredible. We like our sensibilities gelled so well on this project, and this was one of those things where when Frances bought the book, she said, "I have the perfect person in mind," and she wanted to do it, and we developed a great friendship actually. After that, we didn't talk when she was illustrating, but after the book came out, like we just chatting on Twitter all the time. We did a bunch of launch events together. So, I think it was an amazing choice and the perfect pick for this book. So I was really happy with that.
Let's talk about that, because what people don't understand is that usually when you have a book deal, you don't meet the illustrator, you don't talk with the illustrator, you just see the illustrations when the book is ready. I want to go back and talk about that. Remind me. People can't believe that. You work on a book your whole life and then, poof, it's gone. Wonderful illustrations. And I would just say that if you're listening to the podcast, you should run out and buy this book, because it is super fun and super educational. You have like back matter, I don't know, 2,000 words of back matter. Start at the beginning.
Okay, here we go. If you're still a bit small, it is no fun at all when you can't reach a shelf or get dressed by yourself. But you're not alone, my dear friend, it is true. Some things are hard for animals too. A hopscotching horse or kung fu kangaroo, there are lots of things animals just cannot do. Alligators can't pick apples, and bees can't ride bicycles. This is one of my favorite pages. I love that little bee face looking so dejected. It's one of Steph's favorites too, actually. We share a lot of that in common as well. Cheetahs can't chew bubble gum, and dogs can't wash dishes. Elephants can't fit in elevators. Foxes can't flip pancakes. Giraffes can't do gymnastics. Horses can't play hopscotch. I'm going to go back to the B page when we talk about the illustrators. Iguanas can't eat ice cream, and jaguars can't do jumping jacks.
Wow. Listen, if you read any more of this, we're going to get into copyright issues.
Yep. I will tell you something. This page, the iguanas, Steph illustrated mint chocolate chip ice cream. So this is one of those things where it, like when you get the illustrations back, it's kind of this crazy feeling where you see how closely linked you are with someone you've never actually met or talked to. But this is my favorite ice cream flavor. It's her favorite ice cream flavor. When she illustrated this page, bees can't ride bicycles. That's exactly what my bike looks like, right down to the color, which I thought was crazy. So it's just like, how on earth did you do that?
Either that, or she hired a detective.
I don't think so.
But what they say about writing a children's book is that you, as the author, you have to know everything about your characters. So, I would say you knew everything about that bee and you expressed it in a few words, but she cottoned on.
Yeah, I guess, because it worked out so well. But yeah, we have there's one of my favorite illustrations in the book. The bee, I love the expression. There's also one of the end page, which is narwhals can't eat nachos. And in my head, I was like, well, it'd be funny because there's this big horn in the way. And so when she illustrated it, it's like got all these little nachos stuck down the horn trying to eat them. And it's so cute. I was like, yep, that's exactly what it looked like in my head. And then there's some surprises where she would interpret things in completely ways I had never thought about. And it's so good.
So I read the book, and I remembered that some of it rhymed. It rhymes at the beginning, and then your conceit is that every animal, the verb that they can't do is begins with the same letter.
Yeah, I love alliteration.
Yeah, so that's wonderful, and your rhyming is so good. I teach my students not to rhyme unless they are songwriters or musicians, and you got that at the beginning. It's like the verse of a 1930s classic standard. So
it was very helpful to have Frances's eye on that, because I don't know that I'm naturally good at that, but she was really good at helping me like with the idea and shaping it. But I read a lot of, now you grew up partly in Canada. I read a lot of Dennis Lee as a kid. Did you read his books?
After my time, dear.
Okay.
I grew up on on the Walrus and the Carpenter.
Because his books were an incredible influence, I think, on Canadian children in general.
I'm like 200 years old when it comes to literature, you know.
Well, his books were around a while before I was born too, but they're amazing. And the way he uses rhyme, like it's something like I don't know if I've ever seen that. And I think that's just sort of something that a lot of kids of that generation that grew up with those books, it's kind of just in there. Like I read them to my kids and they loved them. And a lot of them don't make sense and they're strange and they're about specific weird Canadian cities. But like the way he puts words together is just mind-boggling to me. So I think it's all just kind of in there.
Mm-hmm. I remember now. I grew up on Madeline.
Oh yeah.
In a house in Paris, all covered with vines.
Also good.
12 little girls in 2 straight lines. And I'm going to venture that it's hard to learn this. You know, you can take courses in rhyming, but I really think you have to be a musician. I think that you have to feel this in order to do it well.
Yeah.
And you have to have a sense of humor.
Yeah. And you have to have a vocabulary. This is not hard words, but sometimes just even finding simple words, it can be so tricky. And I think when you think about just like you have to have that breadth of, and that's just from reading, right? People who read a lot can kind of just pull words out. It's like that Wordle game that everybody's playing online now and posting their scores. But like it's just simple, like being able to recall and match things that try to make sense, and relying a little bit on maybe help from rhyming dictionaries and things. But yeah, I think like the more you read, I think the better rhymer you are too. And not necessarily just reading rhyming, because I don't read a lot of rhyming because it's not as common in what I end up reading. But I think it's something that just kind of filters through you when you're writing.
My gut thinking here would be that you have to be able to read it aloud in order for it to sink in. But maybe there's some people that read aloud while they're reading silently. You see their lips moving like that. Maybe those kind of people.
Well, I've worked in radio for 20 years, so everything I write, I read aloud. It's written to be read out loud. Everything that I write is written to be read out loud. So I also do read things out loud, but it's just
Anna,
become natural.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
For writing picture books.
Yeah.
Tell us what you do. Yeah. What do you do at the BBC?
At CBC?
CBC.
Well, I've produced a lot of different national radio shows. Right now, I coordinate production of shows that air over holidays. So I work with different producers, different reporters, and help them make shows. So it's kind of this, it's sort of like being an editor of a picture book, but it's with radio programs.
So I really think that people who work in radio and have this ability to hear what they're writing or television have a big advantage here, because picture books, you have to read them. This is my 2 cents contribution here, is that you have to read what you're writing, or even better, have somebody read it to you. You pick up all kinds of stuff. Let's go back to your early life.
Oh, can I just tell you one more thing about radio that's helpful with picture books, which is when you work in radio, you learn to rely exclusively on one sense, which is hearing, right? Because everything is built around what people are listening to, including background sound, music, all of that. So with picture books, it's a similar skill, but you're using it visually. So you've learned how to think about one sense entirely, and then in this way you can translate it to visual. And it also reminds you to think about things like sound and think about mood and think about all those things that you weave into radio and how you can do that into picture books, because it's the same, even though it's a different sense. You need all of the senses represented, but in a visual way. So I think that's actually probably the most helpful transferable skill from working so exclusively with sound for so long.
But in this book, there is kind of a literal picture in your head for each. A bee can't ride a bicycle. Well, there's a bee and there's a bicycle. The rendering of this, of course, is the genius of the illustrator. But one of the things that you do have to have in your head is what the illustration might look like. So you do have to have this visual sense. So I want to take you now to your next book, which is next year, which is completely different.
Yes. It's
I recommend everybody to buy this book. T-Rexes can't tie their shoes. The book is just as funny as the wonderful title, and it has a lot of information at the back for those parents who actually want their kids to learn some STEM. I don't know. You know, kids are going to learn at some stage.
mhm.
I'm learning now, and I'm 70. You know, I prefer the stuff at the beginning, the wonder, the crazy, the unexpected.
Mhm.
But you know, there are some parents who want their kids actually
Yeah.
to
That's
learn
why I tried
something
to
about
find
the
some of
world.
those kind of facts that were weird and strange. And because my kids are obsessed with that kind of stuff, like they love weird facts. So like that you can scan zebras like a barcode and that each one has different stripe patterns. Like that's fascinating, right? So it's finding those things that are interesting to kids and are just kind of like they grow to be this tall and they do this and that. Like it's finding those little nuggets that are kind of like that they want to go and tell all their friends about or that teachers want to read because it makes it more interesting.
That is your journalist
Mhm.
brilliance.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. Wow, now that really makes sense. So, like as a journalist, you're looking for things that are truthful or relatively truthful, but also special and startling.
Yeah, and you know, to the audience, right? You always gotta who are you writing this for? Because a lot of times we write for ourselves. We know that. We write, or we write for the 7-year-old whatever version of ourselves. But then
Oh,
it's also
we're getting ahead of ourselves
okay,
now.
carry on.
So I want you're
New book.
no, you know, I'm just going to shut up. You're doing your own interview here. So the new book, and then I want to go back to your childhood.
The new book is called Dark Cloud. It's being published by Kids Can Press. It's being illustrated by Penny Neville Lee, who's a British illustrator, and she's incredible. That one I wrote also in a January of the following year, I guess 2020. It was right before the whole world shut down, actually. I wrote that book, and it's a lyrical um, sort of rendering of what depression would look and feel like for a kid who's trying to understand or sees it in a parent and is trying to understand what that is. So it uses a lot of symbolism of weather imagery and kind of how a kid would move through day-to-day life and what this would look like. And I really, really liked it when I wrote it. Like I find a lot of my manuscripts, if I have to go back and rework them a lot, they're not going to work. The ones that I write really quickly in one shot, and those are the ones that I tinker with the least. Those are the best ones. And this was one of those. It had very little change until it went to my editor, Kathleen Keenan at Kids Can. And we made a few little changes because I had done a lot of repetition. So we mixed up the order. The only thing I did was I flipped the order around in that book multiple times to try to get it right. And then it was another one of those serendipitous, again, Twitter things, because while it was sitting with Kathleen waiting for a decision, and this is right when everything shut down, meetings all moved online, everybody shifted to working from home, things started taking even longer. So she had it, we were waiting. Penny posted this beautiful illustration on her Twitter of this little girl hugging a little dark cloud. And I saw it and I was like, oh my God, it's beautiful. And I thought, if this gets picked up, I want her to be on the list of illustrators for them to look at. So when we were looking at the contracting for this, Kids Can is great. And I just said, you know, I know it's not up to me, but I would like to have some input into the Illustrator if possible, just to talk about it. And they said that would be fine. So we put together a list, sent it to the art director, and Penny ended up being the successful Illustrator candidate. So, I mean, I was so happy because it's going to be beautiful. Like, I can't wait to see it. I haven't seen any illustrations yet, but I can't wait. It's going to be amazing.
But they tell us, don't they tell us not to write about sad things?
They do. I think you can write about sad things as long as there's a bit of hope. The first draft of that book, it was hopeless. So I slightly tweaked the end. Yeah.
Always a good idea.
Yes. Sometimes you just got to get that out, right? And then you got to go back and go, okay, who's reading this, right? Little kids who are dealing with something specific and trying to understand something that's really difficult to understand and really difficult to explain.
Did you say a hook at the end?
Hope.
Okay, so one of the great things I love is because at my age I don't hear so well, is mistakes. I'm a big believer in mistakes. And I heard you said hope at the end, and I heard hook. And then I thought of a children's book as a kind of a necklace,
Hmm.
where at the end there's a hook that enables you to connected with the clasp, which is the beginning.
I love that. I love circular endings. I love them. Yeah.
And I
I think they're
love
great. I
hearing
think
I love hearing things wrong.
you never know where it'll take you.
Yeah, so please write to me before this book comes out, because we definitely, as one of millions and millions of people who was really down and out these past 2 years, I'm dying. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm dying. Not a good word for depression. I'm anticipating reading that one as well. Did you write it because somebody is sad in your family?
I think all families, and probably now, there are elements of anxiety, there are elements of depression. And I think there are certainly, it's going to be, and I mean, at the time, we hadn't really gotten very far into the pandemic, but the further we go in, you just see how necessary books like these are to help kids process what they're feeling, because we know what's happening to mental health for everyone as this carries on for years. And I think it's just one of those things where even if you haven't necessarily been technically diagnosed with depression, you can see this, like you can see elements of this in yourself, in your kids. Everybody has days where they just feel like, can I do this? I don't know. So I think it's one of those things where they can be helpful for people just to see what that might look like and try to start to understand those relationships.
And do you know the song "Look for the Silver Lining"?
Who's it by?
Oh, it's from 1920.
Oh, then maybe not. I don't know.
I used to know who wrote it. Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue. Remember something, the sun is shining, so the right thing to do is let it shine for you. I'll send it to you.
Okay, very good.
102 years. So thank you for reminding me of that classic. Now back to your early childhood, because you know my theory.
What?
That if you write books for 5-year-olds, then you're stuck at the age of 5. That's my theory. I am.
Yep. I think I placed myself about 7, 6 or 7.
That's
yeah,
okay.
something like that. Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to hold that against you. So start at the beginning. Who are you, Anna?
Oh my God, the beginning. Who am I? So I was born in Winnipeg, which is right in the middle of Canada. I have an older brother who is an accountant. My mom was an English teacher, and my dad was a journalist. So we, read, listened to the radio all the time. There was always information, but lots of reading. The first picture book I ever remember writing, I know I wrote a lot as a kid. The first picture book I remember writing was in grade 6 for a class assignment, which was a continuation of a story that we had read. And my teacher ended up picking mine, and I had to do all the illustrations for it. We had it laminated, then I had to present it. So that was my very first picture book experience. Yeah.
Do you have the book?
No, I have no idea what happened to it. We moved, well, that was after we moved. So when I was 6, we moved to Moscow because my dad was a foreign correspondent for the CBC. So we lived there for 3.5 years. That was while it was still a communist place. That we got there and there were people walking around the streets with giant guns, which I had never seen growing up in Canada. We were protected from people. You weren't allowed to mingle. Like, it was a culture shock. Like, I can't really describe what that was like. And I remember reading about Indigenous communities in Canada and how for a lot of people who suffer severe trauma, like so many did, when whatever age you are, when that trauma hits, that kind of stays a little bit, right? So, I mean, there's all different kinds of trauma, but being uprooted from your life and moving far away and experiencing all these things, like there's different elements of trauma. And I think some of that is what we kind of keep with us and what we kind of go back to when we're thinking about parts of our brain. And so that's what I think. I think I'm about 6 or 7 because that's when that happened. I mean, there were great things about that because we met, amazing people, kids from all over the world that I went to school with, that I still am connected to some of them. We traveled all over the place while we were living overseas. And then we ended up moving back to Canada when I was going into grade 5. And that was another culture shock because the kids that I met when I came back here were not like me at all, right? So it was kind of like being an immigrant into your own country in a way, because there's a lot of time between when you're 6 and when you're 10, right? From grade 1 to grade 5 is a lot. So we moved back, went back to school here, went through school. I got my first degree in university was in fine arts, which was amazing. I think everybody should go to art school. Art school is the best thing to do for your brain, I think, because you're given problems and you have to solve them visually, which is kind of like picture books, but also in the opposite way. So it's like you take whatever they assign you and you have to make it something unique and interesting, and that's completely of you, right? And it has to be authentically you. So that was, yeah, I am a huge advocate for art schools. As hard and crazy as they are and how weird they are in academia, like just the ability to play and the ability to explore things is something that most people never get to do. And it is incredibly fascinating. You learn a lot about yourself and how your mind works in that kind of an experience. The only thing I would say is that I used to have life drawing classes at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I was like 18, I think. You're walking into life drawing classes with these nude models at like 8 in the morning. You're just kind of like, okay. So that was that was kind of a lot. But I majored in photography. I did sculpture. I did drawing. I did all this kind of stuff. And then after that, I went to journalism school because originally I wanted to write about art. That was my initial plan as a journalist. But by the time I got out of journalism school, all of the art publications were folding and all of that was all kind of being swept away. So it didn't quite work out that way. So I ended up going into radio, which is where I've been for the last 20 years.
That's incredible. So I guess the simple question is everybody's looking these days for author illustrators. Have you considered illustrating your own stories?
I've thought about it. It's funny when I haven't drawn anything in a really long time. And I feel like
That's
it would
the best reason.
So I just feel like I think it would take a long time to get back up to speed on that. I think maybe one day. I also used to really love doing collages. My thesis work when I was in photography was layering of images using a slide projector. So as like, analog as you can get, I did double exposures in a black and white studio. So I was doing double exposures in like myself, not with Photoshop. I was doing it all layering myself. So I love collages and I love that. So I think if I ever end up doing anything illustratory, it would probably be that kind of stuff. But yeah, maybe one day.
We have to talk. This is what I want to do this year.
Oh yeah?
Is use collages to, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, well, we won't share this with everybody, but this is exactly what's happening in my life because I've done everything except be an artist.
Oh.
And I'm looking for some expression which enables me to just, rip things up.
Yeah.
And put them back together again. I'm very good at the first part. Ripping things up. It's my middle name.
Good for your brain.
So, yeah. Anna, so is there anything that I haven't asked you? As we near the end of our wonderful interview. But I want to have another session with you when nobody's listening.
Okay. Offline. I don't know. I mean, I think one of the things I like so much about the writing community and even just meeting you this way is how supportive everybody is. And I had no idea that the writing community existed when I started, but finding this group of people who are all like a kind of, slightly outsiders, slightly weirdos, a lot of introverts, like it's like, I've never really been much of a joiner of anything, but I think this is kind of like, yeah, this is a good little bunch of people. People are so willing to help and answer questions. So last summer, I mentored 2 other writers because I was like, it's so fun to work with people on their work. And I think that's what's so nice about this community is people are, trying to get their stuff seen, trying to get their stuff published, but there's also this huge willingness to help other people. And it's not competitive. I mean, I'm sure there's some elements of like jealousy and competitiveness because we're people, but, but there's this incredible sense of we're all in this together, which is, I don't know if I've ever seen that anywhere else. Complete strangers are all rooting for each other and helping each other. And it's just, that's not something that's typical in a lot of places.
In other places, like there's 2 people and 1 fish. So they're gonna compete for the fish.
Mhm.
But here, the chance of getting published by a traditional publisher is so slim, that 1 in 1,000 gets the fish. 999 are rooting for that person.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing. The other is that we're all children.
Mhm.
Almost all the people I've interviewed, and it's already almost 40 picture book writers, illustrators, and we are all children at heart. And as you said, we write for ourselves basically.
Mhm.
If we like what we've written,
Yeah.
there's a chance that some other human being is going to
Hopefully,
like it.
yeah, that's the goal. I mean, I loved alphabet books. I loved reading them to my kids. So I was like, oh, wonder how hard it is to write one of those because they're fun, right? So now I've moved
Oh,
into this other sphere where my next book is not fun, but it's lyrical and kind of in a beautiful way. Because I think the other thing you can bring if you're not bringing humor, because I don't really think of myself as a funny writer at all. But I think if you can bring like a sense of beauty and a sense of wonder to something that's a little bit hard, like how do you write about hard things? You have to make it palatable for kids, and you can do that, but it's just a different kind of way of thinking about things.
it's funny world. I just interviewed Nick Solis about 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and his first book was hilarious. His second book is a serious one.
Yeah.
Also
I think
something
it's
to
nice. Like I think it's good for writers. Like when I was querying initially, like I had this is I guess a funny book, but I had, a nonfiction biography. Like because I think what keeps it interesting for me is writing a bunch of different things and not just like I couldn't just write one kind of book. I don't think that would satisfy my brain. Like I like to be able to write across. I have one rhyming manuscript that I really love that I don't know if anyone will ever see, but so I have one actual full rhyming manuscript and then some nonfiction and fiction, but and in different ways. Like sometimes they're written almost like poems with no punctuation, and sometimes they're written as normal little stories with full punctuation. So I think it's great to be able to. I think people stress a lot, writers stress a lot about, this is what, like, suddenly everybody was writing all dialogue. So all the MSs I was critiquing for people were all dialogue, which I find really hard. I've never tried to write one because I find them difficult, but it was just like this huge wave of, okay, now we're all writing dialogue. But,
I love writing dialogue.
oh, writing dialogue
I,
is great,
I was so happy when the wave hit. I said, "Oh, it's kosher to write dialogue now."
but it can be challenging. It's hard to make those links to get the flow of the story. Like that
Yeah,
is
but
a skill.
yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't sold any, but it's so much fun.
It is fun. It is fun. But it's just one of those things where I think people need to not worry so much about what other people are doing or what the trends are and just write what they want because, if you're the only one that's ever going to see it, we all have books that we are the only ones that we're ever going to read them. Maybe our critique partners, maybe our agent's going to look at them and be like, I don't think so. Right. But so, and I think just trying different things can help strengthen the ones that you do end up doing. So writing across styles I think is really, really helpful for me anyway. So I think it's always nice to stretch and try something different. And it might not work, but you might learn something in that you can apply to something else. And it'll make you a better critiquer too.
I think that, Anna, I'm sure. I think that everything that we do and learn and connect, the farther away the points are, the more exciting it is to try and connect them.
Yeah.
This has been remarkable, and I do remember now the question that I haven't asked you.
Oh,
So the question was, who came up with that brilliant idea for the title?
oh, I wrote the title. Yeah, it was.
No, but did it become? Was it before the book, or you just said,
It was before the
"Oh,
book.
A B C D E F G H I W T"? T-Rexes can't tie their shoes.
It started with T-Rexes because my kids and I used to play this game in the winter when they're in the house and you're bored, all the things T-Rexes couldn't do because of their tiny arms. So we did that for a while, and then we ran out of those. Then we started moving on to other animals. So that was kind of the origin story of the book. So that was always the title of the book because it's so ridiculous and funny, and tiny arms are hilarious. So yeah, so no, it came with that title. That was even in the pitch that Frances, I think she liked the pitch, including the title. That was kind of what caught her eye on that. So yeah, that came as part of the package.
Incredible. So, as one of many thousands of writers who have reached the pinnacle, Anna Lazowski, it was great interviewing you.
Thank
And
you so much. It was fun.
Yeah, and we'll do a private thing, and let me know when your next book is coming out, and we'll have a more serious, deep, dark conversation about light and dark.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love that.
So thank you very much. So for the New Books Network and me, Mel Rosenberg, your host, it was wonderful having Anna Lazowski here to talk about her new book, T-Rexes Can't Tie Their Shoes, but they can try. And you
Yep.
know, and what you've shown us today is sometimes when you try, you've certainly tied your shoes in the end. So thank you very much, and I will
Thank
be in
you.
touch. Bye, dear.
Bye.
Ah, regards to Winnipeg.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.